Hey, I know you. You're the man who bought my house back in Rhode Island. The one with the water view by the bay.
Ah, yes, I remember you.
Fancy meeting you out here in the middle of the country.
I know, I wanted that beautiful view of the bay so badly, and living by the sea was great for a while, but everything went wrong.
Tell me about it. Everything went wrong for me, too.
What's your story?
Well, my situation resulted in having all of my money drained out of me. I lived in that beautiful house by the sea. It wasn't right on the water, but you could look out the back window and get a pretty good view. Those houses were expensive anyway, but in 2003 I had to start paying a view tax. This was absurd. My neighbor had exactly the same view as me, with the exception of a few trees off in the corner of the yard, and the tax difference was just about $25,000 altogether. I was paying more than what I thought was reasonable.
Property taxes back in Rhode Island are rough on a lot of people. They are the fourth highest in the country, third if you take average income into account. Just taxes in general tower above most of the country's taxes. The gas tax is the third highest, the cigarette tax is the second, and sales taxes are 7% when the state average is 5%.
Some of the families in my neighborhood just couldn't do it anymore, and had to pack up and leave. Low-income families can't live anywhere near the bay. But besides the property and sales taxes, my career couldn't support me and my young family. I was just starting out as an obstetrician when malpractice insurance went from roughly $50,000 a year to $90,000. This was only between the year 2000 and 2004.
Wow, but aren't medical reimbursements in Rhode Island the second lowest in the country? With high insurance rates and low reimbursements, it doesn't seem possible for people like you to thrive with that dynamic.
We can't really survive, not us rising physicians. The established doctors and dentists are doing all right.
The whole system just seems off kilter, starting with the government. It is filled to the brim with people who get paid opulently, the staffing level is 15% over the national levels, and so is the pay.
It just doesn't seem worth it.
I know, and this makes things tougher for everyone else. Rhode Island is one of the only 6 states to provide free health insurance for part of the population, and for good reasons. The healthcare costs are 41% above the U.S. average, and that is because the burden gets concentrated to all the other workers in the state. In 2005, the 65,900 government employees out of the 550,000 total workers need to be supported somehow. So it takes just about 9 Rhode Island taxpayers to support one government worker's health care.
Money gets soaked up by other things, too. The educational system is a big one. In 2003, the average cost per student was $8,000 in the United States. The Rhode Island average was about $11,000. Communities around the Narragansett Bay area managed to spend $12,000 per student. So basically, a lot of money is going into Rhode Island schools.
So Rhode Island just became too economically unstable for you?
Yes, with all of the costs and rates and taxes factoring together, it made more sense to get my family out of there and into a better state, away from all the escalating prices of Narragansett Bay, and any other piece of coast for that matter. But what happened to you? Why did you leave the house that you bought from me?
The economy didn't affect me or most of the other wealthy part-time citizens that moved into your homes, at least not as much. I was from out of state, only a part-time resident in Rhode Island. I didn't feel the pressure of the high taxes because I paid taxes in my own state. My new neighbors and I didn't share the same tax burden as the full-time residents of Rhode Island.
But it sure was expensive just to buy my house, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, good front property went from $1 million an acre. A good view went for 500,000 an acre. It was crazy, but at least I knew who my neighbors were. The neighborhood was filled with wealthy families like myself. Of course, all of the new owners that bought homes for the low-income families had to have some money. The neighborhood around Narragansett Bay became quite the Ritz town. It wasn't long before other things about the area started to change as well. Big developers bought up some of the little houses and cottages, a few in a row, and tore them down. They would build one expensive home on the joined properties.
But this seems completely counterproductive. The population around Narragansett Bay has already been growing higher and denser, so it wouldn't help the situation to take down a cluster of little houses to make one bigger one. This means only one family, a wealthy family, would live where previously a few families would live. But anyway, if you liked the area and the people, what drove you away?
I didn't have to share the heavy tax burden of other full-time Rhode Island residents, and I did like my neighborhood a lot, but it was the environment, man. The whole environment of Narragansett Bay went downhill.
Oh yes, I heard about that massive hurricane on the news.
That was the last straw, but no. Before that, there were other major things that made Narragansett Bay a bad place to raise my family. There were a lot of people coming into the area, more tourists than ever. It was crowded all the time, yet no one guessed that people were using too much gas and water and energy, or putting too much strain on the environment. There were a few gas shortages, which are alarming. Electricity would fail, and in winter time our oil pipes would burst. Homes and local industries were polluting the waterways. Rain was washing all sorts of pollutants into streams and rivers and into the bay. Bacteria and viruses were contaminating the water and scaring away tourists. The economy would get really off balance when the gas shortages and polluted beaches kept the tourists away. There is years' worth of metals in the water which can't be removed. The scallop industry died out. Fish populations got very low. Eelgrass was nearly wiped out. All of this environmental stuff was happening that were never paid attention to. Then there was the water crisis.
Of course there was. There was a growing population, but the water availability stayed the same. There couldn't have been enough for everyone. And in dry times, there was not an effective rationing system in place. Rhode Island had 400 separate water companies that didn't work together.
My children couldn't play in the water on hot days, but we didn't think about moving. Not until epidemics started hitting the Bay Area. T.F. Green Airport is so close, within 2 miles of the Bay Area, and as you can imagine, some of the thousands of people arriving every day would be carrying some sickness or another, and some of them would come as tourists to the Narragansett Bay. Animals came through as well, and things like mad cow disease and bird flus became a real concern. One of my children became ill, and I decided it might be time to get out of there. The bay became a big mixing pot for bad circumstances. We didn't move fast enough, though, because...
The hurricane, right?
Yeah.
Towns all around the bay are susceptible to hurricanes, being so close to the sea. It is predicted that hurricanes will hit near the region about every 22 years, but since the climate has been getting warmer, they are hitting more frequently now. The hurricane season has gotten longer each year.
There were no effective evacuation plan for the 500,000 plus people living in the threatened towns. Some people had serious injuries. All of the properties were damaged. My house didn't get the brunt of the storm, but the yard was wrecked and the roof has serious damage. Some of my neighbors' homes were completely destroyed. It was time to cut our losses and get out of the Narragansett Bay, and Rhode Island for that matter.
It looks like in the long run, both the families that had to move away and the wealthy families that moved in ultimately suffered in the end. I wonder what the future holds for Narragansett Bay and Rhode Island from here on out.